Hello, I'm Chris, and this is Ma-
Matthew Tudor, Matt, whatever you want to call me.
of the Tunnel, and we're going to do a video talking about the art group, the Tunnel, which is a group uh, that was started 6 years ago now, wasn't it? 6 years
Yeah, October 2014.
in started in London, and we're going to talk a bit just between each other about how we created that, and hopefully, uh, if you like are interested in creating art groups, or if you want to get some sort of perspective on how we started out and um, like our journey, 6 year journey with as a tunnel, then hopefully this will provide some insight and some sort of interesting information about how we did that, I guess. So I guess do you want to sort of talk a little bit about the history, Matt, just from your perspective, I guess, from 6 years ago, how it all started off or kicked off?
Well, it started as a gallery project on Viner Street in Bethnal Green.
Yeah,
Because I was offered the space by Sean Morrow of Cultivate. He offered me the gallery, and I gathered together as many artists as I could, including you, Chris. And we took over the space as a collective.
yeah, and
And
Viner
it
Street
was,
was very thriving part of the East End London art scene at that time as well. So it was very busy,
it
especially
was,
on first Thursdays and all that.
but it was the Cork Street at the East End before the man who owned all the buildings started selling them,
Yeah.
and a lot of them migrated to Fitzrovia, which is a very happening area.
And what was the initial idea of the project when it started off? What was the initial thing that provoked you to want to create a project like that in the first place?
I'd always liked the idea of establishing some kind of colony somewhere.
Yeah,
Like Van Gogh dreamed about it when he travelled around Europe, founding an artist colony. It was like that sort of romantic idea.
yeah,
And it just sort of evolved over time. I mean, we had a lot of discussions in the space, didn't we, about
hmm,
where to go, what to do with themes. And it sort of gradually developed into an attempt at a movement, didn't it? And that's what we've been trying to do for the past 6 years: create a movement of a very
yeah,
diverse movement of artists and thinkers and performers and blah blah blah.
yeah. I mean, I guess the in terms of it wanting to become a movement, the primary like sort of thing that we created for that, I suppose, was the manifesto, wasn't it? Really, in terms of it being having a philosophical base,
Yeah,
which I'm still quite proud of us having done that. I mean, we did a video for it as well, which I'm still quite proud of. So yeah, I mean, essentially, it started off as like a sort of formal collective, and then it did sort of evolve into a sort of more art theory and exhibition group as well, didn't it? So
yeah, we could have a concept group, haven't we, over the
yeah,
years?
and then so how did we go about just so maybe if it helps people who are thinking about doing their own group, how do we deal with like sort of organising things? I mean, I guess that's sort of maybe a bit glib, but how do we go about organising shows? I mean, it's basically most of it was down to group discussions, and they usually roles evolve naturally, don't they, in a group? So sometimes
Well,
people,
yeah. I mean, for the past 4 years, we were meeting every 2 weeks. Obviously, not recently because of COVID, but and having discussions and then extracting ideas from those discussions.
yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, with the tunnel, it's there's always been consistently for 6 years a lot of often intense debate within the group uh,
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
about ideas, about politics, about all sorts of things, which obviously inform all our artistic practices individually. So, what are some for you key moments in tunnel history, or like specific exhibitions that stick in mind, perhaps?
The first one I think that's really important is the Wasteland in 2016, because that's when we launched the manifesto. We had that big discussion
Yeah,
at the Asylum Chapel
is it
in Peckham.
2016 already?
It was 2016. It was March 2016,
God, I feel
just
old.
before
4 years
Brexit.
ago, yeah, 4 years ago.
Yeah, and that was, I think, a high point of the tunnel. I mean, it was a great exhibition. It looked magnificent,
Yeah, yeah, we
and the
had,
discussion was really interesting. I mean,
yeah,
and
because
that was laying the foundation of
we had a
the
lot of
future of the
people
tunnel.
coming to that one, and then there was a very diverse. It was very like we had art, traditional artworks, video, the manifesto, also like poetry. Before wasn't that the first place Noel performed at the
Well,
tunnel?
he
I think.
attended the exhibition, and then he joined, and then he started exhibiting with, performing with us later
Yeah,
on.
because I think that's the
So that was,
first time.
actually, no,
I think that's the first time I
that's
ever
when we first
saw
met Noel,
Noel. Yeah, because wasn't aware of him before. I wasn't. But that was the first time I've
and
heard
that
him
was
perform before.
interesting
So Grassy
because that was
Nolan
the beginning of
is
us.
poet, like performance poet in the London art scene, basically Irish. But yeah, he's very just for anyone who's watching who doesn't know who he is. He's a very interesting performance poet. But yeah, that's the first time I've
And
heard
that's
from him.
important because that was the beginning of our shows becoming very performance based. That became the core of our shows over the next 4 years.
Yeah,
Rushing Nolan, Ape, Mervyn, the performances. And now is so much the focus because we're doing everything online. But
yeah,
that really changed the whole group. That show is so important because it changed the whole dynamic of the group, really,
yeah. And wasn't that
intentionally and also organically.
So what's the current membership at actually now? Is it something like 40 or something, isn't it? Oh, maybe a bit more
48,
actually. 48. So
40, yeah, we've got 48 members, which is I think is very big, personally. Considering we started with 10,
yeah,
and lots of people have come and gone over the years, but people have left because they didn't felt it wasn't for them. People have joined,
yeah, and then
but the core
obviously
has
people
remained
moving.
stable for about 4 years. Me, you, Jamie, Mark, Noel,
Jessica.
Mervyn, Jessica, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the cause remains steadfast, and they're the main organisers. I mean, they're the main decision makers, really. Us
And we like
6, 7 of us.
we've been going for 6 years now, so we have had a pretty fair run at things, and we're still growing it and trying new things. Like obviously in this COVID era, we've been trying a lot more digital, virtual things like live streaming,
Live streams, yeah.
the digital 3D virtual show that we did. And we do digitize and archive a lot of our work and exhibitions on the website,
Yeah,
tunnel.london.
massive archive.
So that's mostly administrated and run by Jamie, a bit by myself as well. Um, so that's been really good, I think, actually.
I think the key to the success of the group, why it's endured so long, is our adaptability. We've adapted to COVID now, having the live streams, the virtual
Yeah,
shows. We're just constantly evolving and adapting, and that's why we've endured so long. Because we're quite old for a collective. Most collectives they last a year or two, and then they just peter out.
yeah. And then
We actually quite old,
a lot of it is
and it's
also
our
about.
flexibility.
It's good. I mean, just as an individual, like as an individual and an artist, I found that it's very good to be in a group like the Tunnel because you're given things to work from, themes to work on. So you're constantly challenged to push yourself in that sense, to come up with new themes and also to work to a theme. Now that might not suit everyone, I guess, but for me it's quite good because it forces me to think of a new subject matter for a specific exhibition that's coming up and forces me to examine a piece of literature or film or whatever it might be. So it can help with even creative blocks, I think, in some respects. That's definitely one advantage, I think, of a collective, and also obviously being of like minds and just making new friends, of course. Um, so yeah, what else can we talk about? And I guess about the art collective. So yeah, 6 years. Um, we did our manifesto. Was it? Yeah, it was
Yeah,
just
and
four
also I
years ago
think
now.
the way the shows are structured, because it's just a base, it's an idea, and then it sort of branches out from that. So it's not restrictive in any way. It's not
Yeah,
necessarily a literal interpretation of idea. It can just be almost anything, which I think makes it really interesting as well.
yeah. So
Structure of ideas. The show is like a structure of ideas.
I mean, the thing is, like now that we've had to branch out a little bit. I mean, even though we're doing a lot of digital stuff, I know because quite a few of the group members are sort of interested in that, like Mervyn with the QR stuff. Jamie obviously is very interested in the digital side of things, and myself. But
Yeah,
we've had to obviously do a lot more in that realm. this last year. So that's sort of been a development in the group, even though it was sort of going on at an individual practice level. I'm not sure. It'd be interesting to see where that goes. I guess like where can we take it further? And obviously a lot of it's time dependent. Like I did that 3D art gallery project, but I don't always have enough free time to do that sort of thing, even though it's fun. But and it's kind of been interesting just as an observation for me, like how much more sound and music has become more of a thing at live shows as well, which is initially before it wasn't so much having a live music element, but now there's like almost like a theatrical sort of performance, with Grassy Knoll and Ape and all that, and sometimes Rude Mechanicals and Mervyn as well. Yeah, there's like always a sort of like almost there's always a performance aspect to the shows, so you can go and see artwork, but also there's music and interesting art going on as well in that respect, like musical sound stuff. So I think that's primarily down to Mark, obviously, he's very musical. He does all sorts of stuff, but he composes music, various types. Obviously, Noel, the poetry, Mervyn is the ukulele, the sort of often satirical, political, quite funny songs on his ukulele as well. And then I've done a bit as well, like with the electronic music. So it's very interesting. It's a big mix and collage of all different sorts of things. But that's sort of been quite. That's been more of the last few years. I think that's been more of a thing at the shows we do. It's interesting actually because I've been in other art groups before, and I found, just as an aside, I found that often people are very split on, in the art world as it were, people are very split on whether they like music type things at art exhibitions and previews nights and stuff. I don't know if you ever observed that before. Maybe it's something that's just sort of like just a phenomenon I've come across, but I found that often artists are very much split as to whether they like that sort of like live performance, music performance at shows. I don't know. Maybe that's just. Because I remember once, as ages ago. I'm probably getting off on a bit of a tangent now. But I remember once ages ago, prior to the tunnel, when I did a show. I sort of created a show actually, and we had a band playing there, and people seemed to think it was a bit of a bad idea having the band playing there and stuff. But I don't know. It's all subjective.
Because most exhibitions are just simply about the work; they're not performance based. What we're doing is very performance based. That's very much outside of that traditional.
Yeah.
It's an event. It's like a spectacle. That's what we're doing, which is very much our own scene, very much the tunnel.
Yeah. And I think
makes the group unique.
One way we could probably even potentially curate it even more, but this is very hypothetical. But is it incorporating like loads of projections and all sorts of, like making everything like a mixed media event in some respects. But that's just me daydreaming, I think, in some respects. But like you can
projections.
Yeah, we've done projections before. Actually, we've done a lot of that sort of thing before. But yeah, I mean, yeah. What else can we talk about? How do you? Because you generally curate most of the exhibition work. How do you generally approach that? Just as a talking point.
I'm not really a curator. I'm an organizer. I initiate ideas. That's what I do. I wouldn't describe myself as a curator because curators can be very dictatorial. I'm not like that. I'm quite keen for it to be a collaborative group experience where other people can have an opinion or a say on how the work looks.
Yeah.
Because I quite enjoy that whole process. I find it interesting.
Feedback and
just discussing things with people. I mean, there's always been a debate in the group that one person should curate the shows, and I'd never believed that. I believe one person should organise and orchestrate the whole exhibition. I don't agree with that. I like it to be several people in a room deciding on what happens.
Yeah, sort of diversity is a strength sort of thing, I guess.
Yeah, because the discussion, the process is interesting to me. I enjoy the process, finding a space.
Well, one thing we've always wanted, we did have a physical gallery space in a hub. But one thing we've wanted and strived for a long time has been a physical gallery sort of like space, isn't it? Like a hub, like a physical space that we can have just as a group.
Well, that may happen next year
Oh, exciting!
when there's going to be a lot of empty buildings in London next year.
Yeah.
They're emptying already. They're emptying now, but there's going to be thousands of empty spaces,
So there might be an
which were
opportunity there.
colonised by artists. So London might go back to what it was in the 80s. You know,
Yeah,
not happening.
every cloud silver lining sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because London's been crazy for a while, hasn't it? I mean, we were looking at all sorts of spaces a while ago, but just realistically, it's just very hard to budge. I mean, there's lots of decent guys. If anyone's watching this and they're interested in art collective organising and blah 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 blah, there's lots of things you can do, like empty shops, and there's lots of resources online. I think with the they're called AN or Artist Network for like. Yeah, for like how to approach landlords and get places and stuff. I think there's a guide for setting up studios, like because just on the side, like before I was at the tunnel, I was part of a co-op in my hometown up north who had like a studio space. It's still running actually now. That's another one that's been running for a while. It's been running for I think 8 or 9 years now, and that they've had to change premises about. Well, once, but the original building we had went. But yeah, I mean it's constant. You constantly have to be moving around. A lot of studios I've been in have had to move. Like second floor, I think I used to be at, have moved now. The studios out in Manchester had to move location completely. They still survive somehow, but it's very much a struggle, isn't it? Because we're all skint, unfortunately. And property is pricey usually. But,
And the problem of gentrification in the UK.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's
The main problem, which is causing a crisis in every city, a studio crisis and a gallery crisis.
Yeah, and I don't think the governmental will's there to really step in. It's not like I guess in some European countries you have a sort of social democracy where the government acts as a sort of patron to the arts. You don't have any of that in the UK, certainly. I mean, if anything, it's taken the reverse trend at the minute currently, isn't it? Like the current Conservative government have appeared quite hostile to the arts, like just saying that people have to,
they've been in power.
There's no value to
and arts because it's not economically viable in their eyes.
Well, it's
even though the art market in the UK is the second biggest art market in the world, it's worth billions. But
yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It's like, well, I mean, these are obviously familiar arguments, but like
to destroy free thought and individualism, I think.
See, I don't think like most conservatives are that evil, but I think they do sort of like, I don't know. I don't think they're like all moustache twiddling, like, oh, we must destroy free thought and anything like that. I mean, some obviously are, but not many. But I don't know. I mean, it's just a very sort of old-fashioned, I don't know, almost Protestant work ethic that if you're not like out in a field doing manual labour or something, then it's not work, which is obviously bollocks. Or if it's like, it's just a very old-fashioned way of looking at what work is. I mean,
dealing with a government that despises intellectualism and experts of any kind, they openly ridicule them. They've been doing that for years. Look at Brexit. We've had enough of the experts. We've had enough of educated people. It's like they're trying to sort of rebrand themselves as some kind of party of the working class, based on the assumption that the working class are all ignorant and stupid. That's the impression I get.
Yeah, which is just, I mean,
which is just utter nonsense.
Of course, it's nonsense. I mean, you can be upper class and an utter idiot. You can be working class and be a genius. I mean, it's yeah.